And welcome back, Grief Nation listeners. Today on the show, we have a very special guest, and my friend here is Mia Livas Porter. Mia Livas Porter is a wife for over 16 years and a mother of two boys. Mia went to her first Moms Demand Action meeting after Parkland as a concerned parent. She stepped into her leadership role for a local group at her first team meeting after learning she was a survivor of gun violence. Her brother Junior died by gun suicide in 1992 after battling schizophrenia for over 5 years. Mia has been sharing her story nationwide on various media platforms, at the U.S. Capitol, with federal, state, and local lawmakers as an Evertytown Survivor Fellow. As the California Survivor Events Lead, she's worked to create events to support survivors and create community. Mia has recently announced her candidacy to fight for the families of AD 51 for California Assembly. Let's welcome her. We have you here on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk. How are you?
Good. I am so excited to finally get to talk with you. I have long been an admirer of all you do for our survivor community.
Oh, thank you so much. And you as well. Thank you so much. And we're going to dive right into all of your greatness. That's what we're going to do here today. So, if you could tell us about your journey of losing your brother, Cipriano.
Thank you for using his name. Most people in the gun violence prevention world know that I refer to my brother as Junior, and it's so rare that I bring up his name. So it's good to hear it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Junior was the middle of five kids, and I'm the youngest. He was the younger of two brothers, and he was full of love, like just a sweetheart, very affectionate. He would smother me with kisses and hugs. He called me his Piscean twin because we were both born in March. Um, and he was just a really kind, gentle soul. And he loved his family so much. So when I was around 15, 16, Junior was off at college, and I heard from my parents that he was sick and he was going to be coming home from college. And they told us he was having mental problems. It turned out that he was schizophrenic. He had battled schizophrenia for 5 years. Uh, we saw him in and out of mental institutions. I would hear him when he would come home. I would hear him, blasting his music really loud in the middle of the night, screaming. It was painful. It was really painful to watch him suffer. Um, but then when I think he was about 26, he told my parents that he wanted to go back and finish school. And so he, along with my older brother, Danny, um, they Danny was sent back as kind of his guardian to keep an eye on him, which is a lot of responsibility. I mean, my heart is always still with my brother Danny too. And so at anyhow, Junior went off to college, and within a couple months, he got access to a gun and died by gun suicide. And Danny was the one who found his body, and it just devastated devastated our family. Each of us um, manifested our grief in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, that happens a lot with families that have lost their loved ones to suicide. And I'm so sorry that for your loss, of course, and that your brother had to find him. Um, how has that unfolded for your brother finding him over the years?
Danny, first of all, the women in our family are stronger. We either rely on our friends, or my mom relied on God and her friends. Um, but I think the machismo in our family, the men thought that they had to be strong for others. So they kept everything buried inside. They locked it inside. And that stuff will just eat you up.
Yeah.
Um, for my dad, for example, actually uh, died 3 years after Junior, I think, his health quickly deteriorated after Junior's death. I think he just lost the will to live, and he couldn't get over the loss of his namesake, his son. For Danny, he shut down. He just couldn't. He's still, when we have family, gatherings, he's still like sweet and fun and funny, but there's just a part of him that is locked away, and he has very much guarded himself over the years, and it just breaks my heart.
Yeah. I asked that question for two reasons because um one, you had stated that he was pretty much kind of like his guardian to, see after him. And in my lost story of losing Taiki, by gun suicide. Oh, I'm so
It
sorry.
cry.
And
It
by
starts.
by using by I'm sorry, when Taiki was initially shot, I'm going back to, I know it's taking me back there, but when he was initially shot, his best friend was killed, and I knew that, that loss for him, losing his best friend, being a part of this trauma, um, which was kind of like a survivor type guilt thing. And I wonder if your brother kind of still felt like that because he was supposed to see after him, and then after that ended up happening to Junior. I just wondered, about his, how was he doing? Because I have that because of Taiki's experience, I guess, and having to experience a loss and then dying by suicide, later on because of the loss. And I just always have just this heart for individuals that have to either witness that or it's difficult, but I'm glad we're talking about it because more families need to come forward and talk about the things that we kind of um brushed up under the rug, and just and see about our loved ones. And I'm so thankful that that you and your family are still close, and I
Thank you.
know it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely hear you. And thank you. Um, yeah, I think we all had some degree of survivor's guilt.
Mhm.
I remember in that, when I found out in that moment, I was like, I wish it had been me who had, had been diagnosed as schizophrenic, who went through that struggle, because I somehow thought that I would have been stronger to get through it, you
Mhm.
know? And it
Mhm.
was a guilt that I carried with me for the next 25, over 25 years, of thinking that, um, it should have been me. I should be
Yeah.
doing, you know, um, I should be doing, and that's why I do what I do, like to try to always like be the one to step up. I'll take care of it. I'll be the one who can. I don't care if I don't sleep. I don't care if you know it's difficult for me. I'll do it myself, because
Yeah.
it's my baggage to carry the duty of trying to help others or something like that.
Yeah.
For Danny, I can't I can't speak for him. I can only speculate
Mhm.
that, you know, I imagine he has guilt of not knowing. I mean, how could he know? How could
Yeah.
he know? But not of not knowing that this might happen, of not um, being able to keep his brother safe.
Mhm.
And it's all self-imposed,
Yeah.
It's like there's no truth to it, but it's the things that, we, as the remaining survivors after losing a loved one, it's the way that we cope, by punishing ourselves.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And that's why I'm so glad that we're talking about it because it's important, especially to families that have experienced such traumatic loss. Um, where to even start the conversations. If we're not, because we don't have the conversations, we just act like stuff doesn't happen. Oh, that didn't happen.
It,
But it
well,
happened.
that's a great point, because that is something that along my survivor journey I've come to realize. The fact that our family, I thought it was initially because we're an Asian family, we're very private. The fact that we didn't talk about it outside the family, we were taught, what happens in the family stays in the family. So when people would ask what happened to Junior, we would say he was shot, not that he
Yeah.
shot himself.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But what happens is that when you suppress that voice,
Mhm.
what happens is that you think of it then as something to be ashamed of, and
Yeah.
it stays with you and it informs like the future, how you interact with everything, from that point forward, and that guilt and that shame.
Mhm.
Whereas like, people are sick every day. Like for me, I see mental health now equivalent to the importance of physical health. You would not shame somebody for having cancer, and
Mhm.
yet
Mhm.
we need to take the stigma off of mental health,
Yeah.
because then people won't ask for help. That's the whole point. Is like if you keep this in the dark, you
Mhm.
know, if you keep this mental illness in the dark, it perpetuates the stigma,
Yeah.
and then people are afraid to ask for help when they need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because those mistruths end up catching up with you, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, our family is still growing. Say, like, if you have younger children, like I have grandchildren. So if I never talk about really what happened, then my grandchildren won't understand how when they, may have some type of mental health um, bad day or just needing, just not knowing how to handle their feelings. Now, um, in Georgia, I hear the age group gets younger and younger with suicide. So it's like, we have to start talking about those things. Okay, and I'm gonna leave it right there because how has this changed your life over the years?
So now in retrospect, I can see that it shut me down basically. In one nutshell, it shut me down. I literally lost my voice. How we were talking about the stigma of not talking about it, it just like impacted me being fearful to use my voice in other ways. At the time that it happened, I was a voice major in college, singing, studying opera, and um, for 5 years, I had been taught, don't tell anyone what's happening with Junior regarding his schizophrenia. Don't tell anyone. And so, like, I started finding, when I would have performances, I would get sick before performances, constantly some kind of issue in my throat. And I believe, the body will manifest what you're mentally dealing with. And so, uh, essentially, I started losing my voice. And after my brother died, after my dad died 3 years later, well, actually, first after my brother died, I left the school because I had voice problems. I developed nodes in my vocal cords, and I stopped singing, which was my heart, my passion, for 20 over 25 years.
Mm.
Um, uh, and then even when I continued my life, as I switched, instead of music, I switched to acting. Even then, before every audition, I would second guess and sabotage myself. Um, Again, so every single way I found to try to express myself would get suppressed.
Mhm.
Self sabotage would get suppressed. Um, and then I just found myself, like, in my 30s, literally, it was easier to just keep my mouth shut on so much. You know, I didn't, if things were bothering me, I'd keep my emotions locked up and not express myself. If, yeah, I mean, I just think overall of how much I shut myself down. And it really wasn't until I found, the gun violence prevention movement, volunteering with Moms Demand Action. God bless the community. God bless the day that I went into my first meeting. It really changed my life, and the community I found myself surrounded by
Mhm.
really supported me and made me feel safe to start using my voice. And it has just snowballed since, to where, as a survivor, and I spent a long time grappling, realizing that I was a survivor of gun violence, because, prior to walking into my first meeting, I always presumed a survivor was somebody maybe who had gotten shot, or who had survived, a mass shooting and walked away. I didn't think because I wasn't the one injured. I didn't think that my brother's death meant that I was a survivor. Um, but back on track. Once I started finding my voice as a survivor and finding that it could help others, and in addition, it helped me heal, it just snowballed. And I started to find the power of my voice.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love all that. Gave me chills. Yes, yes. It was so much in all of that you said, talking about your, school and your voice from. I didn't know it was opera. Wow. I think that's probably
I
what
wanted to do musical theater. I was gonna be like a triple threat, a singer, actor, dancer, and I
Yeah.
wanted to be one of the first, well, not maybe not the first, but to win the four, what do they call them, EGOTs?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be the first
Wow.
Asian woman to get
Wow.
to win one.
Wow. It's coming. It's coming in another way. Watch. Watch. It's coming. It's coming. Gosh. Wow. I would love to hear your voice. It's coming. That's coming too. Okay. So now, since we've been talking about suicide, are there any resources that you have that you can share with us about, someone experiencing suicide ideation, or if someone is in crisis?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for asking. So there is a national suicide hotline that you can call, which is 1-800 273 TALK,
Yes.
TALK, as well as for teens, I believe it's more youth oriented. You can text, I think it's home, to 741741. But in general, two things. In general, if you're someone struggling, please say something. Please ask for help. Reach out. And if you are somebody who has concerns about someone that you care about, or just someone that you see as struggling, please say something, reach out, ask if they need help. That's the only way, um, that's the only way that we can, help each other out of this and normalize needing help. We all have our low points. We all do. But for some, it's a very real uh, darkness that sometimes you just need a hand to help you out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love what American Foundation of Suicide Prevention always states, talk save lives. Let's talk about it.
Yes,
Talk
exactly.
saved lives.
Exactly.
Um, Now, during the pandemic, there was an increase in mental health conditions and elevated suicidal ideation. What are your thoughts about this?
So at the time I was working or volunteering as the survivor events lead for California.
Mhm.
Um, and it was one of the first things to pop in my mind, knowing that we're at the 1 year of quarantine, of COVID shutdown. But the first thing I thought of was the people who are going to be struggling because of either isolation, depression, whether it was because of, being sick or, financial stress, all of that. Um, and I knew off the bat that suicide rates were going to escalate. And then, as quarantine progressed and I heard about, the surge in gun sales. I don't remember the numbers, but I think it's something insane like 40. I don't know if you know. Correct me if you do. I think it was like 40 million gun
Mm,
sales last year
wow.
after during quarantine.
Mm,
Um, that like I think that's about right. It scared the hell out of me. Um, and
yeah.
I just knew, and I thought of people in domestic violence situations, like all of that. I just knew it was like a pressure cooker, a bad recipe for bad news.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot to deal with. Like you said, we all have our good and bad days, and not really understanding what COVID was, and
Yeah.
trying to piece all that together of what our lives um was transitioning into. And of course all of the loss. And I remember I was reading a study on pandemic grief and what that looks like, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I had no idea. This is a whole another level of grief from what I was being taught, and and they did all of these surveys. And
Can you
another thing,
imagine? Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to interject really quickly. Can you imagine though, like, we've had loss. We know how hard it is, but to not even get to see your loved one in their final
Right.
moments, to not get to say goodbye, to not have that closure, how
Yeah,
much more
yeah,
painful that would
yeah,
be. I'm going to choke
absolutely.
up right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would even think about, l- family members that are not even in the country,
Yeah,
and you're not understand. You can't communicate. Um, well, communication and travel was, it was hard to do at the time until, of course,
right.
everything, I guess, kind of Zoom exploded. And of course, I'm sure individuals was probably FaceTiming or whatnot. But if your loved one was sick and they were out of the country, how, I just, that even just that, not even just being local in the hospital, and that you can't go see your loved one, but you have a loved one way across the water, and how, the communication stopped and no travel. And I don't know, my head was just all over the place trying to figure out, who's doing what, and, how are they trying to figure this out. But
Unprecedented times, such like,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
one thing that I discovered after reading about the pandemic grief, was that, we really should be a part of surveys when they put them out there. That's the only way we can build the data to be able to say, okay, well, this was happening in marginalized communities. This was happening, in this nationality. This was because if we
Yeah.
don't do the surveys, or we don't be a part of the testing of it, then that's why our numbers look worse, in certain communities, because we don't have the data, because we don't either go to the doctor to do it, or we don't sign up for surveys to say or share, how we're feeling, if there if there is not just a pandemic, but in anything. I'm just learning about this, but I don't know why I'm saying this, but we have to be a part of
The
majority.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to be a part of the conversation by doing whatever is necessary. If it's filling out a survey, if it's being a part of a medical study, because when I look at the numbers of everything, when they say, oh, Black women, or Filipinos, or
Mhm.
Asian, whatever it is, I'm like, well, why are those numbers like that? Well, we're not participating.
So on that note, interesting that you mentioned that. I wanted to bring up that I recently learned, I hope I say this correctly, there has been a surge or a huge portion of AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islanders, who are recorded of having died from COVID. However, there's a discrepancy because the number of AAPI who have been reported to have COVID is underreported.
Hmm.
And so basically, it's what you're saying that, I don't know why, but for some reason, like the AAPI voice regarding COVID is, again, it's almost like it's being ignored.
Yeah.
Um, and you think of all of the AAPI who are in the medical health industry, medical professionals, or who are frontline workers. Um, that's why it's outrageous that our voices again are not being called to the table basically
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
research and for how to fix this. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's this research, and it's look how thick it is. And it's
What is
Death
it?
Studies Pandemic Grief Scale, a screening tool for dysfunctional grief due to COVID-19 losses. And that's where I'm a big heavy researcher. So and I just start diving into that. But when I was learning about, um, being a part of the conversation, or being a part of the, studies, so that we can, get a better grasp on, how our communities scale in this. And like you said, there's a big gap in, understanding, the loss in your own communities. But yeah, okay.
Hmm.
That's good stuff. We needed to talk about that, I'm sure. Okay, so your advocacy work, which you did already kind of speak about, but I want to dive more into it. Now, share with me again your first interaction with going to a meeting, and what was that experience like for you? And then also share like what you've been able to do as a part of that community.
Yes, thank you for asking. So in 2018, um, when Parkland happened, I remember watching the news and really feeling gutted, seeing these high schoolers having to speak out after experiencing like the worst tragedy anyone could imagine in their lives. It broke my heart, and it really made me feel guilty as a parent. I have two kids, to see these kids, high schoolers, asking for help, asking for the adults to do something. I felt like we as adults failed our kids.
Yeah.
So I went to my first meeting of Moms Demand Action meeting, um, and I walked in, and it was overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I can't remember how many people, like over 100, were in the room at the time, because we all cared. So immediately after that meeting, I decided I wanted to volunteer more, and I stepped up to a local events lead position. At my first meeting with my team that I just starting to get to know, someone had shared a story about a survivor who had lost a brother to gun suicide. And as the rest of the meeting progressed, it, it kept bothering me. It was like, what? That's like, but that's my story. But what? Um, and so, yeah, that was my first epiphany, my first realization that I was a survivor of gun violence. That changed everything for me. I was already invested in the movement because I wanted to protect my kids, but once I realized I was a survivor, I felt a mission. I felt a duty, and it took me some time because I had imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
But not. I'm not. My situation's not as bad as the mother who had lost her
Mhm.
son, or how can I call myself a survivor? It's not as bad as my own mother. What she had to survive. Um, but when I realized that maybe that's what made me have the ability to start sharing my story, to be removed enough to be able to share my brother's story and how it impacted our family, and to be the voice of the voiceless, and that hopefully it could inspire others. That just changed everything. And like I said earlier, it empowered me and it helped me heal. Since then, yeah, it's been amazing, an amazing journey, mostly because I've been blessed to have people believe in me and believe in my voice and encourage it and foster me to use it. Um, and since then, I've been able to share my story with federal and state legislators. Um, our president and vice president have heard my story. I mean, that's pretty powerful. That's
Yeah.
potent and gives me goosebumps even as it comes out of my mouth. I've been able to, do some interviews on television and radio interviews. And more importantly, it moved me because I have an event planning background. It moved me to be able to work with survivors in this movement, and to not only hopefully um, help them find their voices and elevate uh, um, their voices, but support them.
Yeah.
So that's been very like rewarding to me, to have basically to have a reason for why this all happened to our family.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love when you said the imposter syndrome. I didn't even think about it like that, but yeah, that is so true. And like you said, having that epiphany. I had this a similar feeling when I went to my first event was going to a excuse me, a Wear Orange event,
Mhm.
and one of our survivor brothers, James Russell, he shared his survivor story about losing his father to gun suicide, and I was like, oh, okay. It's like we have no idea at the time when we're showing up for these things that we're what we're being called to anyway.
Right, right.
That because like you said, even though I was a mom, lost a son, but I still didn't feel like I fit in
Mhm.
the normal range of the gun violence, homicide, gun violence. I
But
was
isn't that,
showing. I'm
oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, 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 no. Go ahead.
But I was going to say, isn't that like amazing how we qualify our
Yeah.
trauma
Uh
and
huh.
how we compare it to others when in truth, what it is we are all impacted by
Yeah.
gun violence. Every single freaking person in this country
Yeah.
somehow is
Hmm.
impacted by gun violence. It's a
Yeah.
spectrum. And
Yeah.
so, whether it is you literally are afraid to go to the grocery store because last week there was a shooting in the
Mm.
grocery store, or you're afraid to go to a train station, or on the opposite extreme, you lose a loved one, a beloved loved one, it all
Yeah.
changes the course of your life and is trauma.
Yeah.
It's legit
It was a
trauma.
great point that you just made about, going to a grocery store or being at a train station. So, can you go ahead and state to us what are the different types of gun violence?
Sure. So personally, I know that suicide is 2/3 of gun deaths every single day. But there are also homicides. Um, there are unsolved deaths, domestic violence, um, unintentional shootings. There are also bearing witness to a shooting is traumatizing, and I also want to include those who are wounded and have to live with their pain.
Yeah.
I know many survivors. That's the thing. I know many survivors who have been wounded in shootings and still live either physically or mentally with the pain decades later, and yet people forget about their voices.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you
You're
for sharing
amazing.
that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I'm going to quote you on something that I loved when I saw the other day on your page. When people shed a light on their darkest experiences, it not only makes them more relatable and more human, it can inspire others to not be ashamed of their feelings they are trying to bury. And that is where they can find the courage to ask for help. I just love that. I thought that you just came through so personably and just I was just like, tell me more about that. So let's dive into that.
I'm very much a person who transparent. You will see who I am, you know. I have never understood, and seems to take so much effort to have to hide who you are, to look like the perfect person with the perfect family, you know, this keeping up with the Joneses BS. I've never agreed with it, and it doesn't sit well in my skin. So, like the whole idea of what happened to my family. We don't talk about what happened to Junior. You know, we don't want people to know our darkness. You know, our dark secrets. Um, that doesn't help anyone. Um, you know, I think we all have different kinds of traumas that if we had the courage to just be honest and share them, it would connect us more because no one's life is perfect. No one is going to get out of this life unscathed. Let's be real. You know, whether it's a heartbreak or losing a loved one or some other trauma, the more we have the courage to share and voice our experiences, the more it will not only connect us to each other, but it will also give others the courage to share their pain. And when we can share and release that pain, it's it's like learning to breathe again. It really is.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, that's where it comes from.
Wow. It's beautiful. I mean, I really and I was all into it. I was like, like the little emoji.
Cute. You're adorable.
Okay, so Last week, you made a huge announcement about your transition to the political arena last week. So can you
Oh my
share that with my
God.
audience? What's that all about, Mia?
Oh my gosh, what's happening? Yes. So after several months of thought, I have thrown my name into the hat. I am running for Assembly, for California Assembly for my district for 2022. And I am blessed with people around me, amazing people like you around me. I really had, I threw it out as a flippant comment to a friend of mine that I was upset the incumbent had run unopposed, especially because she presented herself as one way and then once in office um, started compromising and serving the needs of her special interests group rather than her district. And so I threw it out as a flippant comment one day to a friend of mine. And the next day I had two people call me, "You need to do this, we'll help you win." And then uh, after talking with many, many incredible, amazing friends, advisors, um, they each left me with a seed of why it was the next logical step in my journey as an advocate, um, and that I had the power to do this, even when I doubted myself, um, and that uh, and that they would have my back. So that's why I'm running. It's not a me show. I have like a lot of support behind me and amazing, incredible people who believe I can do this and who will, help me on the way. And it's daunting and scary and never anything I would have expected to do, but it does make sense
Yeah.
after a lot of thought, and it does feel like this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. Did you ever see yourself here?
Hell no! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! No! Oh my god! No! No! Not even what 8 months ago? No! 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 First of all, I always had this, unflattering um, image of politicians. I have along this journey within the last few years met incredible lawmakers of integrity who really you can tell they're doing it for the right reasons. But overall, growing up, my whole life, I always equated. I always had a specific definition of what a politician looked like.
Yeah.
And then it came to me to realize, why are we accepting that? Why don't we change it? And to know who I am, to know the values I have and what I would bring to the table. I was like, if I mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned that the incumbent ran unopposed this past November. I was like, if I'm not going to do it, really, then who will?
Right. Yeah. Well, I believe you're right where you need to be. So,
Thank you.
yes. I was like, yes, my friend.
Oh my God, I feel the love, like seriously, for my survivor family,
Yeah.
nationwide.
See how many times it was shared when you posted it?
Oh my God.
Look at this girl.
I tried so much to like thank everyone, and it took like I was
That
sleeping
became a
at
job, didn't it?
oh, I was sleeping at like 4:30 in the morning, getting 2 hours of sleep, trying to just acknowledge, because I appreciate that people are sharing, like
Of course.
aw,
Of
appreciate it.
course. So I wanted to ask about your website, which is www.mia4assembly. What is that experience going to be like when we go there?
So right now, we're technically in a soft launch
Mhm.
until to raise funds for our campaign, and then the first recording period will end June 30th, and we'll have an official launch hopefully with a press release, a video, etc. And then we'll flesh out more of the website. Right now, it's called a splash page, where it's basically the basic info you need to sign up for the newsletter, volunteer, donate. And can I mom brag for a minute?
Please.
My, I must say that my 13-year-old son did my website, and I'm pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed. I mean, he took notes from my husband did his own website, so he had asked. He was like, "Can I help you? Can I do the website?" And I was like, "Oh." And then he was like, I thought my husband and he were going to do it, but my husband was like, basically just giving him notes. So I have to mom brag that my 13-year-old did the website. Then right now, what's up? Today, we're actually going to do a social media post that the splash page will be available also in Spanish and Tagalog, thanks to some friends who helped with translations. Again, my 13-year-old set it up, which is crazy bonkers for me.
Wow, that is so impressive. I'm so
I
proud of him.
I'm so
Oh,
impressed. I'm so blown away.
wow,
It's
that
beyond me.
yes, you have to mom brag. Of course you do. We wouldn't have it no other way.
It's beyond what I would have expected, truly.
Wow.
And he is so fast.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, this generation, oh, it makes me feel old.
I know. Trust me, I get it. Trust me, I definitely get it. But I'm so glad we did mention that because that was a great segue to let people to know what to do at the, once they go to the page, volunteer more and sign up. And okay, great.
So we are a people-powered grassroots organization. As I mentioned earlier, the incumbent has special interests money behind her.
Yeah.
So really every single dollar, whether it's, a dollar, $5, will help our campaign. Yes, so please donate. We're trying to I need to show my viability as a candidate I need to raise 100,000 by June 30th to show my viability, which is possible. We're actually already almost about 60% of our goal for the month.
Mhm.
But hopefully donations can trickle in. I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. 100K, June 30th to show your viability. Donate. Okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, so we talked briefly also too about your passion behind the hate crime against AAPI. Can you talk about that in your community?
Thank you. Yes. Um, so gosh, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so I was the only child of 5 kids born in the States. When my parents came to the States, we were taught they didn't speak Tagalog at home. And we were taught basically to blend in. And that I found was common with many, many AAPI families to blend in, to try to, don't rock the boat, fit in, and don't ruffle feathers. Um, and that's become like a stereotype of the model minority who we keep our nose to the ground, we just do the work and we don't complain, which is BS.
Mhm.
For over 40 years of my life, I lived that way where I just, I blended and I compromised my voice in the process and my identity. When my blood is about to boil, when Trump was elected, I felt the color of my skin for the first time in my over 40 years. The next day, I remember after elections, going to get gas, and all of a sudden, it felt like I didn't know who I could trust, whether the white man getting gas across from me was, looking at me in a racist way and wanted to hurt me. And I felt that way for months. Once I started getting active and being embraced by, the gun violence prevention movement and the activist community, that changed. And then a year ago, when COVID started, thanks again to Trump, all of those feelings surged back up of being afraid to freaking walk out my door, being afraid to take a walk around the neighborhood, to go to the grocery store. Um, it was almost a blessing in disguise that my kids who go to a Title I mixed school, it was almost a blessing in disguise that they had to stay home. This was in my head because I didn't want them to be attacked for being Asian. again, at a Title I mixed school already. And, it escalated and escalated. And what was infuriating to me was that it was always a secondary or a third or fourth story of what was happening. If we were lucky to make the news, if we were lucky to have incidences make the news at all. This was happening alongside George Floyd, um, and Breonna Taylor. So we were all overlooked. And it's only been the last month and a half when the attacks started happening against our elders, which, if you know AAPI culture, respect for your elders is like paramount.
Yeah.
And that just, I think, angered and mobilized AAPIs to start speaking out, even more in full force, I should say. And finally, I think it's getting a little more attention. I'm glad to see, Ben and Jerry's made a statement against AAPI hate crimes. President Barack Obama did. I'm so grateful to see that. But yeah, all of this needs to stop. The idea of us being othered in this country, we are Americans too. One of my things that makes me irate is asking, where are you from? Chicago. No, really, where are you from? Chicago. I am an American. I was born in the States. The idea disgusts me that because of the shape of our eyes, people will think we are not American. Mm-hmm. And it pisses me off.
Yeah.
And it needs to stop.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you've had to experience that, but I'm glad you have your voice to be able to speak against it, let people know that it's not tolerated, and that you're doing everything in your power to see that this doesn't continually to happen within your community. So thank you for sharing your vulnerability about this very pressing issue.
If I can just add also, part of what initially I wanted to run for office because I was unhappy with our leadership, our current incumbent. This is becoming something greater than me. It's becoming it's becoming about needing our voices at the table. We have these insane laws that have happened over the history of our country. People know about Japanese internment camps. They know about the Chinese Exclusion Act. They may not know about the Filipino Repatriation Act, where they tried to send, thousands of Filipinos back, basically. And these laws are happening and passing because our voices are not represented. And that's why we do need more AAPI people, especially women, to run. So beyond me, I encourage AAPI women to run, AAPI people to run, and especially AAPI women.
Absolutely. I'll definitely make sure I help get the word out. Um, my ex family is of the Filipino descent, and my children are half Filipino. So
I love that. I know, girl. I remember you told me. That's awesome.
So yes, so of course, and I'll definitely. I don't know why. When I heard you say that, have more women to step up, I'm definitely going to encourage my daughters to talk about it and to tell their families back home in the Philippines about it, and definitely share your story as well.
Here.
So how do you balance all of this? Your work life, mom life, getting ready to, part of the political arena now, advocacy. How are you balancing that, and what are your self-care practices?
Well, great question. I suffer from insomnia, so I get a lot of things done late at night. but that's joking. No, really, one of the best lessons I learned in the gun violence prevention movement was the importance of self-care. Moms Demand and Everytown trained me well with, you have to fill your cup before helping others. Mm-hmm. So in pre-COVID, I did, little girly things like, I love getting my nails done. or my hair done. Oh my gosh, my hair is like gained a foot since quarantine. But in the meantime, I mean, over this past year, I've been lucky to have a wonderful, 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 supportive husband who we parent equally. So, if I can't cook, he cooks. If I can't make it to a parent meeting, he can, So I've been very, very blessed to have a wonderful partner. And my kids, I kind of have raised them to be independent. So they don't need, I mean, they're 13 and 9 now, but yeah, like they do their own thing, we have family moments. I should clarify. We have family moments that we value together, but when I have to work, they're perfectly capable of being independent. So that's been a blessing. But otherwise, yeah, whether it's walking, I have an awesome rock star, awesome therapy dog, or biking. These are the things that bring me joy. That sometimes you just have to walk away and do something for yourself to keep your mental health, intact.
Yeah. Good stuff. I love it all. Thank you for sharing. So share one of your favorite quotes with my Grief Nation listeners.
Mm, Um, when my brother died, one of my sisters taught me this quote, um, and I had to look it up to make sure I say it properly. Though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. I have loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night. I believe the quote is by Sarah Williams.
Hmm.
I love how it encaptures, like I said, the darkness that we all go through during our life, but to keep believing that there will be an up, that it gets better, um, and to embrace it because it's what makes you, I think, it's what makes you strong. It's what makes you, it defines your character.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I love that. That was beautiful. Now, how can
Ever heard it before?
no, I've never heard it, but it's just so beautiful. It leaves you like
Well,
speechless. It's just kind of like, oh, and it
yeah.
makes you think about that. Oh, wow. Ma-
Oh,
Okay.
good. I'm so glad I could share it with you.
Yes. I love it. I when I started when I first started the podcast, I wasn't asking that question, but I'm like, what inspires people? That's pretty much of it, of like of knowing, getting an opportunity to get to know you even better. And then it's like, but what fuels them? What inspires them? So that's why I asked that question, because I like to know, what are your thoughts, to help you along your journey? Because on days that I may not be feeling, all my best. I can remember what you've stated to me, and I'm like, you know what, and that'll get me in a better mood. So,
Another quote I just want to share quickly is, which keeps me going, is "It takes a village." I always think of it in my advocacy,
mm,
both as a blessing and as a responsibility,
yeah,
knowing that I have amazing communities around me of people who advocate because they care, and then it keeps me going, trying to perpetuate it with others that I interact with.
absolutely. And what I tell a lot of times when I'm doing facilitating grief groups, I'm like, yeah, our loss brought us together, but the greater thing that is amongst us as a group is love, because how much we cared for the individual who we have lost is even greater than the loss itself, of why we're here, because we really want to be able to express how we feel about that individual who's no longer with us. But yet there's grief, but in return there's this greater thing beyond loss, which is love. So um I
I'm
appreciate
Oh my
that.
God, I'm so with that. It's amazing to see the difference when people operate out of love
Yeah.
as opposed to when they operate out of hate. Hate destroys and divides.
Mm,
Love grows and builds, and it's healing and it's connecting.
yeah.
100% with that.
Yes. And so, how can others reach you? Share your platforms with us.
Absolutely. So on Twitter, Insta, and Facebook, I am Mia Livas Porter. My campaign is at Mia for FOR Assembly. on Twitter, Insta, and Facebook as well. And yeah, would love followers and support to cheer me on.
Yes. And please don't forget to go to Mia's
Website. Thank you.
website to donate. We want to make sure by
Thank
June
you.
30th that she reaches her goal of 100,000. So let's make that happen for her. Help my friend out here. And also, what is your superpower and why?
Oh, I think my superpower is operating from my heart. It's just seriously, it's truly like I feel like it's led me right. It's helped me connect with people. And it's authentic. It's yeah, I think just operating from my heart.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh yeah. That's a good old snip right there.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry. Some of this
We're gonna lead with that. We're gonna lead with that on something. Trust me, watch. That's gonna be a good clip right there.
Oh,
Yes.
you are the best. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, last but not least, of course, please share a beautiful memory of your brother Junior.
Oh, so I mentioned that he and I had shared a love of music. He was the one who, up to now, one of my favorite bands is Styx because of Junior. Oh, I was so jealous. My parents were really strict, but somehow when he was in high school, he got to go to the Styx Kilroy was here concert, the Mr. Roboto. Oh my God. And I just remember going through the, concert program, the concert program with all the concert footage. I just remember afterwards going through it with him and like, he was showing me everything he saw. Aww. Up to now, like, yeah, they will always be my beloved favorite band.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And you just light up when you talk about your brother. You know that, right?
You're gonna make me cry.
Okay, so before I let you go, what's your call to action? Or is there something that we haven't discussed that you would like to bring further awareness to?
I think, first of all, thank you so much. This has been so lovely. You are so lovely. Oh my God, I just adore you. And I think the call to action is for everyone to just use their voices. Use their voices to help, not hurt. I just think, it's such a grandiose, it sounds cheesy, but it really, truly, I truly believe that, if we would just use our voices to help each other, to connect with each other out of kindness, rather than hurting, our world would be so much better, and coming from the lowest of the low these past 4 years, all we have is to go up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much, Mia, for being here today on It's the Miami Night Show. We truly have adored everything that you have to offer.
Thank you.
Um, our Grief Nation listeners, you're filled with so much inspiring information, and just your walk of this grief journey has just been, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And I'm so delighted to have people on like you that can show that, what grief and resiliency actually looks like. And you are a true testament to that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been my honor. I adore you.
Thank you, and I adore you right back. Have a good day.
Stay tuned. It's the
All right,
Miami
thank
Night
you.
Show. We'll be right back.
There you have it, Grief Nation listeners, and thank you for tuning in to another transformative segment on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk. Today, we give thanks filled with love and gratitude for our special guest, Mia Livas Porter, for expressing your very unique grief journey and sharing ways of understanding the healing process. This is your girl, Miami Night, with much love and light until we connect again spiritually. Bye-bye.
Slow mo.
He's got me walking that grief one.
Going slow mo.
He's got me talking that grief time.
Going slow mo.
He's got me clocking the
It's the Miami Night Show.
hey, yeah.
Slow mo.
He's got me walking that grief one.
Going slow mo.
He's got me talking that grief time.
Going slow mo.
He's got me clocking the
What up,
It's Miami Night, your master grief coach. Welcome to the Miami Night Show. You got me walking that grief walk. It's time for grief talk, y'all.
I talk about things you think about.
It's Miami Night, your master grief coach.